The distress beacon hit the Vega station at 0300 hours. No preamble, no identification code, just a raw, screaming pulse that made every console on the observation deck light up red. Lieutenant Kai Durham was already on his feet before the second pulse finished. He was the only human on shift. That part mattered later. The beacon origin was Deep Sector 9, a stretch of dead space so far off the trade lanes that only smugglers and the desperate went there. The station commander, a six-limbed Ch'nari named Volsk, ordered a priority scan before committing any vessel. Standard protocol. Volsk was old and careful, and had lived long enough to know that raw distress beacons in dead sectors usually meant pirates using bait. Kai ran the scan himself. The wreckage signature came back clean. One small transport, hull catastrophically compromised. Life signs faint and dropping. Two of them, maybe three. The computer could not confirm the species. Volsk approved a single scout runner for retrieval. Kai volunteered before anyone else opened their mouth. The runner was a cramped two-seat vessel that smelled like recycled air and old coffee someone had spilled into a vent 3 missions ago. Kai punched the jump coordinates himself, locked the autopilot for the first leg, and sat back in the dark with nothing but the hum of the drive and the quiet red pulse of the beacon growing stronger as he closed the distance. 40 minutes out, the wreckage resolved on his forward screen. It was bad. The transport had been hit broadside by something that burned clean. No debris scatter, which meant an energy weapon, not a collision. Whatever had done this had done it on purpose and left. The hull was peeled open on the starboard side like a tin can that something enormous had simply decided to open. Kai cut the autopilot and took manual control for the approach. 2 life signs, one stable, one not. He matched rotation with the wreck, which was spinning slowly on its long axis like something exhausted, and extended the magnetic docking clamp. It caught on the 3rd try. He sealed the umbilical, pressurized it, and went in with a med kit under his arm and a hand light clipped to his jacket because the runner's umbilical light had been broken for 6 weeks, and nobody had fixed it yet. The inside of the wrecked transport was dark and cold enough that his breath came out white. Emergency lighting pulsed orange along the floor strips, the kind that only activates when main power is gone. He moved fast, stepping over a collapsed storage rack, ducking a bundle of exposed wiring that sparked weakly in the corner. The first life sign was in the cockpit. A young male, species unfamiliar, with pale blue-gray skin and a narrow face. Unconscious, but breathing. Blunt trauma to the head, nothing that looked immediately lethal. Kai zip-tied a portable oxygen mask over his face. He tagged him with a medic locator and kept moving. The second life sign was in the rear compartment. He pushed through the buckled hatch and swept his light across the space. She was crouched in the far corner behind an overturned cargo container, knees pulled tight to her chest, a piece of sheared metal held in one 3-fingered hand like she intended to use it. Her eyes caught his light and did not look away. Kai had met maybe 40 species in his 4 years at Vega Station. He knew enough to recognize fear, even when it wore a face nothing like his own. Her skin was a deep amber green. Her pupils were vertical and wide in the dark. And the ridge of cartilage along her jaw was trembling in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. She was young. That was the first thing he registered. Young and alone and trying very hard to look dangerous with a piece of scrap metal. He stopped moving. He lowered the hand light so it was no longer pointed at her face. He set the med kit down on the floor, slowly, and showed her both palms. She did not drop the metal. Her pupils contracted. He stayed exactly where he was. He did not speak yet. He had learned from a Venhari dock worker 3 years ago that the worst thing a human could do in a first contact moment was fill the silence immediately. Because humans were loud, even when they were trying to be quiet. And to most species, that loudness read as aggression. He counted to 8 in his head. Then he said quietly, in the galactic trade pidgin that every spacefaring species was supposed to know at least 20 words of, "I am not the ones who did this." Her pupils moved, not dramatically, just a small shift, recalibration. She said something, not in pidgin, something clipped and fast, 4 syllables, the last one rising. He did not know the language. He was honest about that immediately, tapping his ear and shaking his head once, slowly. She watched him. He pointed at the med kit, then at the direction of the front compartment where the mail was. Then back at her, fingers spread flat, open. The metal piece in her hand lowered by maybe 3 inches. Her eyes never left his face. Kai had been told, more than once, by more than one species, that human faces were unsettling. Too many micro-expressions cycling too fast, too much visible muscle movement. The Chennari on Vega Station had explained it once over bad station coffee. When your kind think, it shows. All of it. We find it difficult to track. He kept his face as still as he could manage, which was not very still because he was a Durham from outside of Columbus, Ohio. And every Durham ever born communicated half their interior life through their eyebrows. She looked at his eyebrows for a long moment. Then she looked at his hands, his forearms. The way he was standing with his weight slightly back, non-threatening. The old body language instinct his drill instructor had spent 6 weeks trying to override and then given up on. The metal piece lowered the rest of the way. She did not drop it. She held it loosely at her side. Kai exhaled slowly, picked up the med kit, waited for her to decide what happened next. She did not run. She did not attack. She looked at him the way something looks at a thing it has never seen before and is trying to file somewhere that makes sense. And something in her expression changed. Not fear, not trust yet. Something that sat between them like a door that had just clicked to unlocked but had not yet been pushed open. Kai waited. The temperature in the compartment dropped another 2 degrees. Somewhere in the wreck, a secondary system died with a low groan of metal. She made a decision. He could see it happen. Her spine straightened. She tucked the metal shard into her belt. And she pointed at the front compartment, the direction he had come from, the direction where her crewmate was. Kai nodded once, stepped back, gave her the doorway. She walked through it first, and he followed, and that was how it started. The male in the cockpit, the one with the head wound and the oxygen mask, was named Rel. Kai learned this in the runner on the return leg when the girl, whose name sounded like Sarah, but was probably something his tongue was flattening wrong, kept saying it while monitoring Rel's vitals on the small med display Kai had clamped to the co-pilot console. Rel was stable. The cut on his scalp had stopped bleeding. His breathing was even if shallow. Sarah had not slept. Kai could tell by the way she blinked, long and effortful, the way creatures blink when they are fighting it. He handed her a protein bar from the runner's emergency kit, near foil-wrapped, dense, designed to taste like almost nothing and deliver calories fast. He had lived on them during the month-long debris survey near the Kellen Belt and developed a complicated relationship with them as a result. She took it, sniffed it, looked at him. He unwrapped one of his own and ate a piece, which was the universal gesture for "this will not kill you, probably." She ate it in 4 bites. Then she looked at the wrapper for a long moment, folded it very precisely into a small square, and tucked it into a pocket in her suit like it was something she intended to keep. Kai made a note of that, filed it under things he did not yet understand. They did not have language in common, which meant the trip back to Vega was conducted in a kind of improvised sign language that neither of them was good at. He pointed at things and named them in pidgin. She repeated the words, or did not, depending on whether she seemed to think they were worth the effort. She was selective in a way that felt deliberate, not confused. She was learning the words she decided to want. When he pointed at himself and said his name, she said it back almost immediately. Clean, accurate, like a recording. When she pointed at herself, the syllables were 4. Rhythmic, ending in a soft click he could not reproduce. He tried twice. She watched his attempts with an expression he was beginning to recognize as patience, worn thin by amusement. She said Kai instead, pointing at him. Then at herself. A sound shorter than her actual name, but clearly intentional. A placeholder she had assigned herself for his benefit. He decided to be honored by that. It seemed like the right call. They were 40 minutes from Vega when Rel came around. It happened fast. One moment he was motionless. The next his eyes were open, and he was sitting up with the mask half torn from his face. 3 syllables out of his mouth in the language Kai did not know. Looking at the runner, looking at Kai, looking back at Sarah. The whole sequence in about 2 seconds flat. Sarah said something firm. One word, repeated. The tone was the same tone his older sister had used whenever he was about to make a bad decision, which was often enough that Kai recognized it cross-species without any translation. Rel looked at Kai for a long moment. Kai gave him the same open palms he had given Sarah in the wreck. Different setting, same meaning. Rel said something else. Sarah answered. They went back and forth for about a minute, and Kai understood 0 words of it. But he understood the shape of the conversation. Rel was asking who this was and whether to be afraid. Sarah was telling him something that was not exactly no, do not be afraid, but was closer to wait and see what he does next. Kai appreciated that she had not just said he is fine, trust him. He would not have trusted that either. Wait and see was the right answer. Wait and see was honest. Rel eventually leaned back against the cockpit wall. He was not relaxed, but he stopped looking at Kai like he was calculating exit options, which felt like progress. Kai focused on flying. The beacon from Vega was strong now, the station's full sensor array painting a clean path home. He checked the runner's logs out of habit and found something that did not belong there. A second beacon, faint, intermittent, different frequency from the distress call that had brought him out here in the first place. He almost dismissed it as equipment echo. He did not dismiss it. He ran an analysis. The second beacon was not distress. It was directional. A marker. Someone had tagged that wreck before he got there, or tagged it from inside it, pointing toward something specific in deep Sector 9. He glanced at Sarah. She was watching Rel. She had not looked at the console. Kai noted the beacon's origin point, logged it quietly, no alert, no transmission, filed it in a place he would come back to. They docked at Vega at 0611 hours. The medical team was waiting with a gurney for Rel. Volsk was on the dock personally, which meant this had already become a situation requiring administrative attention, which Kai had mostly expected. Sarah stepped off the umbilical and stopped. Vega Station was enormous and loud and smelled like the combined biology of 30 species living in close proximity to industrial filtration systems. The dock alone had 6 vessels in various states of loading, a crew of Shinari workers moving cargo on magnetic sleds, a group of harem merchants arguing over a shipping manifest, and the grinding hiss of the docking clamp resetting for the next arrival. She went very still in the middle of all of it. Kai stepped up beside her, not touching, just near. He pointed at the medical wing across the dock, then at Rel being wheeled there, then at her, question implicit. She nodded, one sharp movement, and she walked after the gurney without looking back. Volsk appeared at Kai's elbow. "Species identification?" Volsk asked. "Not yet," Kai said. "She is not hostile. He has a head wound and possible internal bruising." "When Commander?" "Yes. There is a secondary beacon in the wreck site. Directional, not distress." He handed Volsk the log data on a chip. "I think someone wanted that ship found. I think maybe they wanted whoever was in it found. I do not know yet if they wanted them found alive." Volsk took the chip, looked at it, looked at Kai. "You were supposed to be on a retrieval run, Lieutenant." "I was," Kai said. "I retrieved them." Volsk made a sound that, in Shinari, knew conveyed the specific exasperation of someone who had just realized their quiet morning had become a long day. Kai had learned to recognize that sound in the first month. He started across the dock toward the medical wing. Somewhere behind him, Volsk was already calling for a full analysis team on that beacon data. In the medical wing, through the window of Bay 3, Sarah stood at Rel's bedside with her arms crossed and her eyes on the door, waiting, watching. Every person who walked past, she clocked them, registered them, filed them. When Kai came through the door, she stopped watching the others. That part he did not notice yet. He would later. The analysis team came back with species identification at 1400 hours. Kai was in the debriefing room with Volsk when the file hit the table. Thin, partial, mostly cross-referenced guesswork from a database that had not been updated in 3 years. Valari, a minor spacefaring species, outer rim origin. Population concentrated in 2 systems Kai had never heard of, known for navigational expertise, long-haul freight operations, and a biological trait the file described in a clipped 2-sentence paragraph that Kai read twice before asking Volsk to let him take the file. He read the paragraph a 3rd time in the hallway. Valari possessed a threat response instinct that had evolved over several thousand years of survival in contested space. When confronted with an unfamiliar organism or entity under conditions of duress, the instinct triggered an immediate assessment process. Not flight, not fight. Assessment. The Valari would observe, analyze, and make a determination about whether the entity was a threat or a resource, and then orient accordingly. The way a compass needle orients, reliably and without ambiguity, once it has finished finding north. The file did not say what that orientation looked like in practice. It did not have to. Kai thought about the wreck. The corner, the metal shard in her hand going still. The way she had looked at his eyebrows, his hands, his weight distribution. The way she had assigned him a name before Rel was even awake. The way she had tracked every person who came through the medical bay door and stopped tracking when he came through. He thought about the protein bar folded into a small square in her pocket. He went back to the medical bay. Rel was asleep. Whatever the station doctors had given him was working. His color was better. His breathing was even. Sarah was in the same chair she had been in when Kai left, but she had moved it to face the door. She had a cup of something hot from the station dispenser. She was not drinking it. She was reading a station map. The paper kind, the kind they kept in a rack near the entrance for new arrivals. She had it unfolded across her knees, and Kai could see from the doorway that she had been marking things on it in small, careful notations, using something that left a faint impression on the paper, probably a stylus from her suit. She looked up when he came in. He pulled a chair and sat across from her, not at the bedside. Her territory, her terms. He put the species file on the table between them. She looked at it. She could not read Federation Standard, almost certainly, but she could see the header image, which was a Valerie cultural symbol the database had tagged as a territorial marker. Her eyes came back up to his. Kai said carefully, in Pidgin, "I want to know what happened to your ship." She understood happened. That much was clear from the small shift in her expression. Ship she had learned in the runner. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, and in Pidgin that was better than it had been 3 hours ago. "We were followed." "From where?" She said something that was not a word he knew. A place name, probably. She tried it in Pidgin, gave up, and instead opened the station map and pointed to the outer rim notation in the lower left corner. "That far?" Kai said. "3 jumps," she said, which was 5 words of Pidgin strung together cleanly, and he understood from that she had been doing vocabulary work since he dropped her here. Rel stirred in the bed but did not wake. She checked him automatically, the way someone checks a clock, regular and unremarkable, and then looked back at Kai. "Who followed you?" Kai asked. She did not know the Pidgin word for the answer. She pulled the metal shard from her belt, the same one from the wreck, and she scratched a symbol into the margin of the station map. Angular, deliberate, 4 strokes. Kai stared at it. He had seen that symbol before. Not often. Not recently. But the shape of it lived in his memory the way bad things do, attached to a briefing file he had read 2 years ago during a security clearance upgrade. The kind of briefing that ended with a reminder about information compartmentalization and the consequence of disclosure. The symbol belonged to a group that the Federation officially described as a piracy consortium. Unofficially, noted the analysts Kai had overheard in the corridor outside that briefing room called them something shorter and less polite. They were not pirates. They were hunters. They moved through uncontrolled space, identifying targets with something the Federation wanted, stripping those targets of what they carried and leaving nothing behind. The targeting criteria had never been fully established, which was the part that kept people like Kai awake on overnight shifts. He kept his face still, and he was getting better at that. "How long were they following you?" he asked. "Before Rel knew," she said. "I knew." She touched the side of her head, temple, a gesture he filed away. "You knew and did not tell him." He would have run faster. They would have hit the drive sooner. She looked at the door for a moment, then back. "I kept us alive 3 more hours." Kai sat with that. She had not told her crewmate they were being hunted because telling him would have changed his behavior in a way that would have gotten them killed sooner. She had carried the knowledge alone and bought 3 hours with the weight of it. He said, "The beacon, the secondary beacon in the wreck, directional. Did you place it?" She looked at him differently then, the same way she had looked at him in the corner of the wreck with the metal in her hand, but inverted. Not assessing threat, assessing something else. "Yes," she said. "It was not pointing to the station," Kai said. "It was pointing deeper into Sector 9. "Yes. What is in Sector 9? She was quiet for long enough that he thought she had decided not to answer. Then she said carefully, like she was placing each word with deliberate weight, "What they took." Kai looked at the symbol she had scratched into the map margin. He looked at Rel sleeping. He looked at the woman sitting in a chair she had moved to face the door, who had survived a Hunter-class attack by not panicking, who had placed a directional beacon from inside a dying ship, who had assessed a strange human in the dark and decided he was worth keeping within arm's reach. The station hum filled the silence. Somewhere on the other side of the wall, a docking clamp engaged with a sound like a struck bell. "What did they take?" Kai said. She looked at him for a moment. And then she did something he had not expected. She reached into the inner pocket of her suit and pulled out something small and flat and set it on the table between them next to the species file. It was a photograph, or the Valeri equivalent of one, printed on a material that was slightly thicker than paper and had a faint luminescence at the edges in the station light. It showed a child, very young, amber-green skin and vertical pupils, and a serious expression that looked, on a child's face, like someone doing a very dedicated impression of an adult. Kai picked it up, looked at it, set it down. He understood now what the beacon in Sector 9 was pointing toward. He understood why she had not run even when she had the chance, even when she had assessed him, and the assessment was not yet finished, even when she had the medal in her hand and the door to the cockpit at her back. "Okay," he said. That was all. One word. She watched him. He stood up. "I am going to talk to my commander," he said in pidgin. "I am going to show him the symbol you drew." He tapped the map. "I am going to need you to stay here." "You will come back?" she said. It was not quite a question. "I will come back," he said. She nodded once. Sharp, like the first time. Kai left the medical bay and walked down the corridor at the kind of pace that looks unhurried and is not. Volsk's office was on level 4, a 10-minute walk, and he used every second of it to build the argument in his head, the one that would convince a cautious, six-limbed administrator to authorize a run into deep Sector 9 based on a scratched symbol and a photograph, and the instincts of a human lieutenant who had been awake since 0300. He did not think about the probability calculations. He was a Durham from outside Columbus. They were not built for probability calculations. They were built for the part where you had already decided and were moving fast. Stairs, corridor, level 4. He knocked on Volsk's door before the thought to hesitate even formed. Volsk said no 3 times. The first no was immediate, automatic, the reflex of an administrator, confronted with a request that involved unauthorized incursion into unpatrolled space on the basis of unverified intelligence. Kai had expected it. He let it land and kept talking. The second no came after Kai showed him the symbol from the map margin. Volsk was old and careful, but he was not naive. He knew what the symbol meant. He said no again, quieter, which paradoxically meant he was beginning to think. The third no came when Kai explained what was in Sector 9, according to Sarah. Volsk sat back in his chair after that one and was quiet for a long time. "A child?" Volsk said. "Yes." "Their estimate of how long since the attack?" 18 hours, or maybe 20. Volsk looked at the ceiling of his office, which was the same gray composite as every ceiling on the station. Uninteresting, the kind of surface you look at when you are doing math in your head you do not want anyone to see. A ship that size, minimum crew, likely 2 hunters. They would move to a secondary location after the strike. Yes. They would not move the cargo far if the cargo is fragile. Kai said nothing. He let Volsk get there. You want my runner." I want 2 people besides myself. I want the runner and a secondary vehicle code flagged in case we need to come back fast. And you want to take the girl? She placed the beacon. She knows where it points. She has been tracking this in her head since before the attack. I would be walking into Sector 9 blind without her. Volsk made the sound again. The specific Chennari exasperation. It was longer this time. 12 hours, Volsk said. I give you 12 hours, us a runner, and 2 of my security staff. If you have not made contact with me by hour 11, I am filing a loss report and reopening the sector as unpatrolled space. You understand what that means? It meant the Federation would not come looking. It meant whatever happened in Sector 9 in those 12 hours would be off the record. Understood, Kai said. If you find what she says is there, you do not engage the hunters directly. You extract and withdraw. I will have a full response team ready to move on your coordinates. Understood. Volsk looked at him. You are doing this because of what she said or because of how she said it? Kai thought about the photograph on the table. The child's serious face. The way Sarah had held it, not clutched it. Just held it. Like something that was hers, but also a weight she had been carrying a specific distance. Both, he said honestly. Volsk approved the mission in writing at 16:20 hours. Kai was back in the medical bay at 16:22. Sarah was standing. She had refolded the station map and tucked it into her suit. The photograph was gone, back where it came from. The cup of something hot was cold on the table, untouched. Rel was awake, sitting up in the bed, watching the door. Who looked at Kai coming through it with the expression of someone who had already been briefed and was not happy about the briefing. Sarah said something to Rel in their language. He answered. When she answered back, it was short. Then she looked at Kai and said in pidgin, flat and certain, "We go now." "We go now," Kai confirmed. Rel moved to get out of the bed. Sarah said the one-word thing again, the sister tone. Rel stopped. She said something else, softer. 2 words Kai did not know. Rel looked at his hands for a moment, then nodded. He lay back down. Kai said, in pidgin, knowing Rel probably did not have the words, but trying anyway. "He will be here when we come back." Sarah translated. Rel looked at Kai for the first time with something other than suspension. It was not trust. It was close to the door of it. In the corridor, Volsk's 2 security staff were waiting. Both Chennari, both the type that said nothing and moved efficiently. Kai had worked with them before. They were good. Sarah fell into step on his left without being told. She looked at both the Chennari, cataloged them, looked ahead. Kai ran the math on what they were walking into. Hunter-class operators, minimum crew but highly trained, a 20-hour head start on repositioning. They would have chosen a location in Sector 9 with cover, minimal sensor return, multiple exit vectors. They would not expect pursuit. That was the gap. They had hit a small freighter with 2 crew and left them for dead. Nobody ran after Hunter-class operators into unpatrolled space for a cargo that small. It was not rational. Kai was aware that it was not rational. Sarah, walking on his left with a borrowed station sidearm she had inspected with the methodical attention of someone who knew exactly what they were looking at, was aware too. She had assessed his decision and not argued with it. She had simply started moving. The runner dock was on level 1. The elevator was out on this corridor. Standard, because something on Vega Station was always out. They took the stairs. Sarah matched his pace exactly without watching his feet. The Chennari security fell in behind. The station intercom ran a routine cargo announcement above their heads as they passed through the Level 2 junction. 12 hours. Sector 9. Whatever was at the end of the directional beacon. Kai hit the stairwell door at speed and took the steps 2 at a time. The runner's engine was already cycling when they reached the dock. Volsk had authorized the warm-up remotely, which meant the old administrator had started the clock before Kai even left the office. 12 hours. Kai strapped in. Beside him in the co-pilot seat, Sarah pulled up the nav display, looked at it for exactly 4 seconds, and entered a set of coordinates without asking for the maps she had marked. She had them memorized. She had had them memorized since she planted the beacon in a dying ship in the dark of Sector 9, with hunters behind her and a crewmate unconscious in the next compartment. Kai looked at the coordinates, looked at her. She was watching the dock door close, the station light thinning as the pressure seal engaged. He set the autopilot to her numbers and pushed the throttle forward. They went. Sector 9 was dark the way deep space gets dark when there is no traffic and no settlement. And the stars are far enough apart that the light between them feels thin. The runner's headlamps did nothing useful against it. Kai ran on instruments and the coordinates Sarah had given him, checking the signal from the directional beacon every 4 minutes because the signal was faint and intermittent and he did not want to lose it. Sarah watched the instruments on her side. She did not ask questions about the equipment. She had looked at everything once, in the first 10 minutes, with the same methodical attention she had given the sidearm. And then she understood it. Or at least she understood enough to tell Kai at the 1-hour mark that the sensor return on their left at bearing 227 was not debris. It was a ship, running dark, no beacon, no transponder, or tucked in beside an asteroid cluster that showed up on sensors as a mass of compressed iron and ice. Kai cut the runner's headlamps. He nudged the throttle back. They were still 300 kilometers out. The Canary security were in the rear compartment. Kai tapped the comm panel twice, which was the signal they had agreed on. He heard them moving to positions, and Sarah was looking at the dark shape on the sensor screen with an expression that was very still and very focused and not frightened. She said something in her own language, a single word, and it was not a curse or a prayer. It sounded like a confirmation, like she had found something she had calculated would be here, and it was here. Kai said quietly, "I need to know what is on that ship before I move." She nodded. She pulled the station map from her suit, the one she had been marking, and pointed to a notation in the Sector 9 area. 2 symbols, both angular, one of which Kai did not know. Then she mimed something with her hand, a small container shape, a size that matched what he thought she meant. "Life support," he said. She touched her nose, which he had already figured out was yes, in Valerie gesture language, and held up one finger. 1 life support unit, 1 occupant. "Is it set to maintain or to terminate?" Kai said. She looked at him. She did not know the pidgin for terminate. He did not have time to find a workaround, so he said it plainly. "Are they keeping it alive, or has it been set to run out?" Understanding crossed her face. She did not look away from him when she answered. "I do not know," she said. 18 hours, maybe 20 now. Portable life support, standard grade, ran between 16 and 24 hours depending on the unit. They were at the edge of the window, or past it. Kai moved. He pulled the runner off its quiet drift and angled toward the hunter ship at a speed that was not subtle, because subtlety had a time cost he could not afford. The sensor board lit up. The hunter ship registered them. It began to move. "They are running," one of the Chennari said from the back. "They are not running," Kai said. He was right. The hunter ship turned toward them. Not an escape vector, an intercept vector. They had been spotted, and they were being treated as a threat to be neutralized. Kai opened the emergency channel on every frequency the runner could broadcast and sent the Federation suppression code, the one that required any vessel in a 15-kilometer radius to halt pending identification check. It was a formality. Hunter-class operators did not respond to Federation suppression codes. But sending it created a log entry, and log entries mattered later. The hunter ship kept coming. Kai said over his shoulder, "I need 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds." The Chennari security engaged the runner's rear countermeasures without another word. A burst of sensor chaff and a false transponder signal went out from the runner's tail, painting a ghost ship on the hunter's instruments at 240 off the port side. The hunter ship broke toward the ghost. 30 seconds. Kai brought the runner hard around and hit the thrust for the asteroid cluster, the gap between the rocks that the hunter ship had been tucked inside, where the sensor's shadow would have hidden a small secondary vessel or a cargo container. It was a cargo container. Old model, battered, the registration code on the side scratched off with something that had left deep marks in the metal. It was drifting slowly on the residual momentum of the hunter ship's departure. Sarah was already at the runner's side hatch. She did not wait for the dock seal. She used the emergency suit clips they kept on the wall and clipped to the exterior hull before Kai could say anything. He matched velocity with the container. She crossed the gap on the clips, landed on the container's hull, and pulled the manual release for the external access panel by feel in the dark, because she had known where it would be before she got there. The panel opened. She went in. 11 seconds. 20 seconds. The hunter ship had found the ghost target and was correcting. Kai tracked it on instruments. 45 seconds until they broke back and reacquired. 32 seconds since Sarah went into the container. He opened the comm. "Sarah, I need you." Nothing. "Sarah." The container's side hatch opened. The full-size one, the cargo access, swinging out on locked hinges. Sarah was in the frame. She was holding something. Not a something. A someone. Very small. Wrapped in an emergency thermal sheet. Alive. Because the breath visible in the cold was present. Faint there. Kai had the runner's cargo bay open before she reached the hull gap. She jumped it. The hunter ship corrected its vector. Kai closed the bay, sealed the dock, and hit every ounce of thrust the runner had toward the exit vector Volsk had pre-flagged. Behind them, the hunter ship fired once. The round went wide, struck the asteroid cluster, sent a cascade of frozen rock and iron spinning across the sensor board like an applause no one had asked for. Kai did not look back. He was on the comm to Vega. "This is Durham. I need the response team on my vector now. I have the cargo. I have 2 passengers. I have a hunter-class vessel that just fired on a Federation runner and left a log trail of it." He paused 1 second. Tell Volsk he might want to upgrade that response team. In the cargo bay behind him, Sarah was sitting on the floor with the thermal sheet and the child, and making a sound that was not quite speaking. Rhythmic and low. The specific frequency of a living thing telling another living thing that the worst part is over. Rel was probably awake in the medical bay, probably watching the door. Kai watched the distance to Vega grow on the nav display, the numbers climbing the way good numbers should. 31 minutes. Nobody said anything. The runner's engine was loud and even, and ran like something that had been asked to do one job and intended to do it. He ran the math on the hunter ship. It had fired and missed. It would not pursue past the sector line, not with the log entry, not with the response team incoming. They were professionals. They knew when a situation had changed shape. It had changed shape. The child made a sound from the back, small questioning. Sarah answered it. 4 syllables, rhythmic, the same ones Kai had heard in the wreck when she had said something he did not know. He did not ask what it meant. Some things do not need translation. They just need to be heard. The station beacon came online at the 20-minute mark, strong and clean, painting the path home. Kai followed it in and did not touch the autopilot. He flew it himself all the way to the dock, because some arrivals you do by hand. Volsk met them at the dock with a response team and a medical unit, and an expression that had moved somewhere past exasperation into a territory Kai did not have a Chennari word for. Sarah came down the ramp carrying the child, still in the thermal sheet. With the precise and unhurried manner of someone who has just done the thing they came to do and is not performing any feeling about it. The medical team moved toward her. She let them take the child, tracking every hand that touched it, cataloging every face, filing everyone in the order of trusted or not yet. Kai came down behind her. Volsk looked at him. "The hunter ship fired on us," Kai said. "It is on the log." "I know," Volsk said. "I also know you went in without full clearance on a timeline that did not give me room to stop you." "Yes." "And if she had been wrong about the location?" "She was not wrong," Kai said. Volsk looked at Sarah, now standing at the edge of the medical cluster with her arms at her sides, watching the team work on the child with the focus of someone who would not be moved from this spot by anything short of structural catastrophe. Volsk said quietly, like the secondary beacon she placed in the wreck. "Yes." She placed it for someone, not for the station, not for any Federation receiver. The beacon frequency is not Federation standard. It is a private band. Kai had not known that. He filed it. She placed it for someone who would know to listen for it. Someone who would know what it meant. Kai looked at Sarah. She had not looked back at him since they came off the ramp. She was fully focused on the child, on the medical team, on the small face visible above the thermal sheet, eyes open now, tracking the ceiling lights with the solemn attention of a young creature absorbing a new world. She had survived. She had navigated. She had planted a beacon for a specific receiver, and Kai was not that receiver. And whatever the plan had been before the runner from Vega Station showed up, it had been replaced by something that ended here, on this dock, with this outcome. She had adapted. Mid-emergency, under fire, she had adapted her plan to the new variable without breaking stride. The new variable had been him. He thought about the direction she had pointed on the station map. The corner of the wreck, the metal shard going still, the protein bar wrapper folded into a square. "Get me a full brief on the private band receiver," Kai told Volsk. "And get me someone who speaks Valari. The database has a partial linguistic file." "I know. I need someone better than partial." He paused. "I owe her a real conversation." Volsk processed this. "You owe her a conversation." She has been operating in a language she does not know, on a station she has never seen, in a crisis that has not stopped since before I found her. Kai watched the medical team finish their initial assessment on the child. Watched Sarah receive whatever they told her with a single nod. Watched her shoulders drop by a degree that was almost invisible and was not. I would like to talk to her like an adult, and she deserves at least that. Volsk made the sound, the exasperation sound. But it was shorter than usual, almost fond. I will find you a linguist, Volsk said, and walked away to make it happen. Kai crossed the dock to where Sarah was standing. She looked over at him, then down at the child, now on a mobile medical unit being steered toward the bay. Then back at Kai. He did not have the right words yet. He did not have the language. But he had the thing that had worked in the wreck. You were in the runner, in the cargo container doorway. He stayed exactly where he was. He showed her both palms. She looked at them, looked at him. And then she did something she had not done before. She reached out and pressed her 3-fingered hand briefly against his open palm, not a grip, just a touch, a point of contact, and then withdrew. It lasted less than 2 seconds. Kai did not move for a moment. Then he folded his hand and walked with her to the medical bay. The station hummed. The dock crew moved around them, unconcerned. A cargo sled rolled past with a sound like distant thunder. Somewhere, a new beacon was being received and logged and assigned a runner and a lieutenant who had not yet been awake since 0300. The door to the medical bay slid open. They went through it. End.